Sometimes we forget celebrities are human just like us. We tend to put stars on a pedestal and forget that they're prone to the same kind of flawed logic, impulsiveness, and hasty decision-making that the rest of us are. Keep watching to learn all about 6 celebrities who declared bankruptcy and the apparent reasons why they ended up in this precarious financial situation. Marvin Gaye. Known for his hit singles like What's Going On and Heard It Through the Grapevine, legendary soul singer Marvin Gaye was forced into bankruptcy in 1976 after going through a pretty dicey divorce. The settlement ended up requiring Gaye, who was already in a rough financial place, to pay his ex-wife all the royalties from his next album, Here My Dear, in order to make up for the $600,000 in alimony he owed. It's also been alleged that another reason why Gaye ended up in this terrible financial bind had to do with his increasingly expensive and escalating coke habit. Those in his circle noted the singer was burning through his savings at a concerning pace. Because of these 2 factors, Gaye spent his final years dealing with crippling addiction and financial problems. Ultimately, his life was cut short when his own father shot him to death during a heated argument over money. Larry King. The late TV personality had a net worth of nearly $150 million at the time of his death in 2021, but there was a time when he had no other choice but to file for bankruptcy. The famed talk show host's career began in radio, and despite his relatively small salary back then, he was known to live well beyond his means. In 1971, King was arrested for allegedly stealing $5,000 from one of his business partners. Even though those charges were dropped, his reputation took a hit, and it was years before he recovered from the fallout. He struggled to find work following the arrest, and in 1978, he filed for bankruptcy after finding himself over $350,000 in debt. Fortunately, he was hired on later that year as a late-night radio talk show host. That gig eventually led to his long-running TV series, Larry King Live. Before we tell you more, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Burt Reynolds. In December of 1996, Reynolds filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The world was caught off guard by this move, as Reynolds had been one of the most prominent stars in the world for the better part of 2 decades. In the 70s, he appeared in films like Deliverance and Smokey and the Bandit. These roles cemented him as a celeb who had a lot more to offer than just handsome looks. While he made millions in Hollywood, his high-profile divorce from actress Lonnie Anderson in the early 90s dealt a substantial blow to his bank account. At the peak of his career, Reynolds estimated he had amassed more than $60 million, but at the time of his bankruptcy declaration, he was more than $10 million in the hole. But it wasn't just his divorce that caused it. Burt's lavish lifestyle was something he wasn't shy about flaunting. He bought several mansions in Beverly Hills, built a huge seaside estate in Florida, acquired a 160-acre ranch also in Florida, and maintained a stable of 150 horses. Reynolds also purchased a mansion in Georgia, got a private jet and helicopter, and regularly indulged in the most luxurious consumables. If it wasn't top-shelf single malt or a good year, he didn't want to drink it. And Burt would always wear the fanciest designer threads. And then came the bad investments. In the 80s, Burt's business manager convinced him it would be a good idea to invest in a chain of family-friendly country restaurants called Po' Folks. While the investment looked good on paper, seeing as how the chain was thriving at the time, the parent company that owned the restaurants ended up being a disaster to work with, and the public didn't seem to care much for the food. Reynolds and his business partner hired a consultant to help them get out of the business, but that so-called expert ended up convincing them to instead invest in another chain of restaurants. Long story short, both investments were terrible, and they lost between $20 and $30 million. If that wasn't bad enough, in 1990 he borrowed $4 million from CBS while starring in the series Evening Shade. He figured if the show was able to air for 5 seasons and then enter into syndication, he'd not only be able to pay back his loan, but also net a few million for himself. The series was canceled in 1994 after airing for 4 seasons. To qualify for syndication, it needed 100 episodes. Unfortunately for Burt, only 98 episodes of Evening Shade were produced. So Burt was required to pay back the network all the money he borrowed. At the time, he didn't have it. Then Lonnie filed for divorce. His 1998 bankruptcy court disclosure listed his assets as being valued at $6.65 million, while he owed $11.2 million in debts. He also owed money to the IRS, Chase Bank, his former manager, his agency, and shockingly a whopping $121,000 to his toupee maker. After appearing in 1996's Striptease and Boogie Nights in '97, Reynolds' career was reinvigorated for a few years, but his wealth never reached the heights of his heyday. He spent the remainder of his life living on a 3.4-acre property in Palm Beach County. At the time of his death in 2018, Reynolds' net worth was estimated at about $5 million. Gary Coleman. While Coleman was the star of Different Strokes, he was the highest-paid actor on TV. Unfortunately, his wealth quickly deflated. When his sitcom ended, the actor struggled to find new roles. Health problems and medical bills ate up a large chunk of his money as well. In 1999, he was left with no other choice but to file for bankruptcy. At that time, Coleman was $72,000 in debt due to unpaid medical bills. About a decade earlier, he had a net worth of about $7 million. Health and financial problems continued to plague him for the remainder of his life. In 2010, he passed away virtually penniless at 42. Gary Busey. Even though Busey had a long and consistent career in television and film, appearing in flicks like Lethal Weapon and Predator 2, in 2012 he filed for bankruptcy while declaring debts between $500,000 and $1 million. Busey had been involved in a near-fatal motorcycle accident in 1988 that left him with a traumatic brain injury that resulted in a strong shift in his personality. For the next several years, he heavily abused cocaine before getting clean and converting to Christianity in 1995. When he filed for bankruptcy, he owed money to the IRS, various medical facilities, and to a woman he had attacked in 2011. It's estimated that in 2022, his net worth is only about $500,000. Tom Petty. The late rock legend Tom Petty famously filed for bankruptcy in 1979. Not because he was in financial peril, but as a legal gambit to free himself from the shackles of a restrictive contract he was under with his label at the time. The music industry's modus operandi is to pay advances to artists against future earnings. This resulted in Petty eventually discovering he was deeply in debt to the label. His lawyer also informed him that when he signed with the label, he had given away 100% of his publishing royalties for a $10,000 advance. This forced the court to readjust his business arrangements, which in turn voided his contract with the label. Now it's time to hear from you. Which one of these celebrity bankruptcy stories was most surprising to hear? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content. By the way, if you haven't joined Facts First as a member yet, be sure to look below this video and click the join button. By becoming a paid member of Facts First, you'll get access to exclusive video content that you won't find anywhere else. This includes some of our more mature content that isn't suitable for public audiences, which includes topics like Hollywood actresses who posed for Playboy and some of the steamiest moments in movie history. Plus, you can enjoy these videos completely ad-free. Our biggest fans will notice they also get badges next to their name when they leave comments on our videos. We pay special attention to comments from our members, and so do other viewers. So if you want exclusive content from Facts First or inside access to discussions with other community members, click the join button to get started for just $4.99. There are hours of members-only videos waiting for you, with new videos added every month. And we're actively working on bringing even more features to help fans like you connect with other members and get more of your favorite content. Just click join, and we'll see you inside the membership tab.